Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dylan Tucker at NASEO. Thanks for joining this webinar presented by NASEO's Rural Energy Task Force. We have some great speakers lined up today to discuss how they're helping train the energy workforce and support the industry. We'll let people have another couple minutes to log on, get their audio sorted out, and we will get started shortly.
Hello?
Hey there. Is that
Hi,
Tom?
it's Tom. Yeah, hi.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for joining. Yeah, we'll just get started in a minute here. I was just giving people some time to log in, and then we'll introduce everybody and let you present.
Okay.
Great, so we're a couple minutes past the hour. I think we can plan to get started. So welcome everybody to this webinar presented by NASEO's Rural Energy Task Force. We're going to be focusing on workforce development initiatives that support the rural energy sector. We have some great speakers lined up from the Nebraska Energy Office as well as the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. Unfortunately, one of our speakers had to drop out due to a family emergency. I know we're all adjusting to the new remote work lifestyle, so unfortunately we won't be able to have Mike Shapranko join us, but I'll just give a quick overview later on about the programs he runs, since I think they're really helpful to the municipal utilities in Wisconsin. Before we get started, we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. There's a few different ways to ask questions. I've muted all the participants, but through GoToWebinar, there's a question feature, so you can type questions to me, or you can also raise your hand. There's a hand raising feature, and if you do that, I can unmute you, and then you can ask your question to the group at the end. So those are the two different ways to ask questions. So I don't want to take up much more time, so I'll pass things off to, we have Sumesh Arora, who's the Director of Energy and Natural Resources Division at the Mississippi Development Authority. Sumesh is a member of the Rural Task Force and has been leading a lot of great workforce initiatives and has really brought a lot to the topic. So we're happy to have Sumesh moderating, and we're also going to have a couple of remarks to kick us off from Sandy Vizzelli, who is the Managing Director at NASEO and leads a lot of our workforce development initiatives. So Sandy, I'll pass things over to you to kick things off.
Great, thank you, Dylan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, as Dylan mentioned, I'm Sandy Vizzelli here with NASEO. Thanks to our great panelists, as well as those of you in attendance for taking the time for today's webinar. And I hope you and your loved ones are all safe and well in these times. So even before our world, national, state, and local economies experienced the devastation we're now seeing from the coronavirus pandemic, workforce development was a key policy priority and challenge for many states, particularly for those that have rural and remote populations, aging energy sector workforces, high rates of attrition in their workforce, career skills needs and gaps as energy technologies evolve and change, and a number of other challenges that we're seeing in workforce. But obviously, this webinar is especially timely now. The March unemployment report released by the federal government highlighted changes in the U.S. energy economy that we expect are going to worsen as the crisis goes on. On the one hand, we're seeing major job losses across all sectors. There were 10.6 million unemployment claims in March alone. Within the energy sector, we expect that the losses are currently at about 106,000 job losses. We're certainly estimating that to grow in the coming months. And one of our partners, BW Research, recently released an analysis of COVID-19 impacts on the energy workforce, not specific to rural economies, but we'll plan to share that in case it's of interest to those of you on the line. I think the plus side is we know that energy investments can also be a solution as the country seeks ways to pull itself out of economic crisis. So NASEO is also working on strategies and ideas for how investments in the energy sector can help address the massive unemployment crisis that we're facing and will be facing as we go through this public health issue. That was a rather long intro to note that NASEO has resources to help state energy offices interested in workforce development. And we certainly invite you to contact NASEO staff if you're interested in learning more. A few resources that I will highlight, and specifically, one is the U.S. Energy and Employment Report. NASEO has partnered over the past 3 years with the Energy Futures Initiative and BW Research to conduct a nationwide survey of energy employers across various energy sectors. This includes fuels, electric power generation, transmission, distribution, storage, motor vehicles, and energy efficiency. And what that report helps us illustrate is the wide range of occupations, demographics, and people, the very high number of people that are in energy sector jobs across the U.S. and how vibrant that economy is. That is available at usenergyjobs.org, and there are also state-level fact sheets that break down those energy sectors by workforce, demographics, and other key features. So if you're interested in that, we're happy to share that with you, or feel free to visit that website. Later this year, we'll also be launching a project, a new one with the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Economic Diversity. The idea there is to highlight opportunities for greater participation by minorities in the clean energy workforce in certain regions. We'll be sharing a little bit more information about that over email in the coming months, but again, certainly welcome you to share your experiences engaging minority and underserved communities in workforce development in your state, and we would love to hear about your successes and lessons learned. So again, feel free to contact me, Dylan, or other NASEO contacts if you'd like to learn more. And thank you for your time. And Dylan, I'll pass it back to you and Sumesh to get started.
Thanks, Sandy. And I'll just let Sumesh take things away to get the webinar kicked off.
All right, thank you, Dylan. It's a great honor for me to be on the call this afternoon. Is my sound coming out okay?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Well, thank you so much for organizing this webinar. And as Sandy said, also, it's a really timely webinar. And again, we certainly hope that everybody on all the ends, all parts of the country who are participating in the webinar are safe and healthy. That's always the prime concern, especially in times like these when we have lots of cases that are diagnosed in every state. So certainly want to keep that in mind first and be mindful of that. Again, thank you so much for having me as a moderator for today's webinar. I do serve as the director for the State Energy Office in Mississippi, and I will be introducing our speakers this afternoon also. But just a quick word about some of the work that we're doing in workforce development. It's an important part of our activities for the State Energy Office. It's called the Energy and Natural Resources Division, and we are housed within the Economic Development Agency for the state. So job growth and job training or some of the important aspects of our agency. So we try to make sure that a lot of our efforts are also aligned with the mission of our agency. What we do is a lot of is the support for the strengthening the K through 12 pipeline for STEM careers, and we do that by addressing the programs such as the Middle School Science Bowl and the science fair. So we award Energy Smart Awards at regional science fairs. Now, of course, both the Science Bowl has been canceled, postponed this year. The science fairs have been canceled this year because of the COVID. So we're really trying to reel from that. We also do professional training for teachers through a program called Project Need. And that was scheduled for middle of March also, which has been canceled. But I will encourage actually all of you to check out Project Need's website. They have really compiled a lot of some of the great resources that they have, and that's NEED, National Energy Education Development Project. So it's easy to find them on the web, and they have also put together a list of resources that teachers can use and download at no charge. So really a great resource out there for teachers as well as parents now who are at home who have to become homeschool teachers now. So really good information that's available from them. But one of the also our signature events that we do each year when it comes to exposing students to energy is called the Energy Awareness Day, and we typically get about 1,000 students each year come out, about grades 3 through 12, and to really help them understand various aspects of where energy comes from and how it's distributed and consumed, and do about 25 different learning stations that really deal with all different aspects of energy. A lot of that is supported through the private sector partners as well. One of the most recent initiatives that has started in Mississippi is the what's called the Energy Academy. That's at the high school level. It's also a public-private partnership with the local utility and the state providing in some funding, and part of it is also coming from the U.S. Department of Labor dollars through our Department of Employment Security. So it really is a very collaborative effort, and it's uh, to design to give a pathway to students who are in high school who can also potentially dual enroll in a community college, but to take courses that are geared towards careers that can launch them into the energy sector. So some really unique work that's going on, and I think some of it may be replicated in other is replicable in other parts of the state and other states as well. So we're really excited about some of these opportunities that are developing, and of course, we're all trying to learn new ways of doing things as we get hit by the pandemic. Well, I just wanted to give a quick overview of some of the work that we are doing. The report that Sandy mentioned, the UCR report, is really a great report, and we were able to take that as well too and do some economic impact analysis in Mississippi also, and realizing that 15% of the state's GDP is actually tied to the energy sector. That's the economic impact of that sector. And we looked at the methodology that report employs, and it's a very comprehensive methodology because it really looks at the full supply chain of the energy from the time that you take fuels out of the ground and from the time you have to manufacture the components that go into it, the different aspects of say manufacturing electrical cables or components, transformers. All those are really a part of the energy supply chain, and oftentimes you don't think of it in that comprehensive manner. And depending on what sector you may be in, you may only think about the utility side or the fuel side. But the credit to this UC report really is a very comprehensive report. So it was the basis for us to be able to do that economic impact analysis also, which we did in partnership with Mississippi State University's Research Center. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll introduce our speakers for today. The first speaker we have is Tom Tabor, who's the Weatherization and State Energy Program Division Chief from the Nebraska Energy Office. So that would be my counterpart in Nebraska, but they have a lot more on their plate than we do because they also do the weatherization and the LIHEAP program. Tom's been serving in that role for 7 years and has a background in master's in community and regional planning. Following Tom will be Nick Hyla, who's the executive director for the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, and he's been in that role for about 9 years now, where he works in partnership with organizations throughout the Midwest to advance renewable energy education and market development initiatives. Nick holds a master's degree in natural resource management, and some of his work is focused on reducing cost and increasing market penetration for solar PV systems through the DOE's Sunshot Initiative. So with that, Tom, if you would be, I think we have, Dylan's going to queue up your presentation because I do believe you have a presentation. So we'll let you get started with your presentation, and then that'll follow with Nick. And then I think we'll have plenty of time for Q&A towards the end of the hour.
Hello. Oh, hi, this is Tom Tabor. I'm all of a sudden have lost the picture of the slides. Dylan, are you queuing those up, or are we still connected?
Yeah, I passed presenter power over to you if you have the slides, or I can run them from my computer if that's better.
Oh, I thought you were going to load them on, and I'd have to get them up. If you have them quick to set up, otherwise I'm working from a laptop from home, so it's a little cumbersome here. So
okay, there you go, Tom.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. I am Tom Tabor, and I'm the division chief, and we're actually now called the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. We merged offices in July 1 of 2019. We were the Nebraska Energy Office, and we merged with the Department of Environmental Quality in the state here, and so we're called the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, and I'm in the Energy and Assistance Division. Next slide. Okay. Well, is everybody hearing me okay?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So in our office, the Energy and Assistance Division, we have 3 programs that impact the workforce development. We have our state energy program, the Weatherization Assistance Program, and then we have some special projects that also impact the workforce development. Next slide. So in the state energy program, first like to describe our dollar in energy savings loan program. And with that, we received around approximately $39 million in revolving loan funds back during the era period, and then there was some other funds added to that, and it's been running since 1990. And with that loan program, 2019, we're looking at about 40 job years with a labor income of $1,553,125. So just for those that are not familiar with job years, a job year is one job for 1 year. So, and in some of the statistics for the state energy program and the weatherization assistance program were developed from the economics department at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln in 2012, which they were able to develop a program for us that we can collect the economic values of the programs that we are doing. And so we're able to get an account of how many job years. We also can look at other items like the savings and how much carbon monoxide, nitric oxide, and those types of things we are keeping out of the atmosphere. So it was a very sophisticated program, and I have no clue on. They have all the formulas in it, and it just seems to work. But we're happy to have it. It gives us some good information. So in 2019, we had investments of $3,715,154 towards 286 residential projects. And then since 1990, we've had $359.9 million that has been invested in 29,688 projects. Next slide. So in rural Nebraska, investments in 2009 and 2010, the Nebraska Public Power District provided additional funds to the Dollar and Energy Savings Loans program of $1 million to finance 1.5% loans for air source, groundwater, or ground-coupled heat pumps, qualifying thermostats, and backup natural gas and propane gas furnaces that are 95% have a 95% efficient rating. And this program also contributes to the Nebraska rural workforce, and with local HVAC professionals and banks who have loan officers and other associated resources that are for suppliers and other industries like that. Next slide. So we also have in the state energy program, we have a function of watching over the energy code enforcement, and so we have oversight of the energy code, and this was just recently we passed in last year and will go into effect July 1 of this year, the 2018 IECC code. And so in the interim before July 1, we've been trying to put together some training, and so where there is local code jurisdictions that adopt an energy code, they need to meet the minimum requirements of the Nebraska Energy Code, and they are responsible for enforcement. Where there is no code adopted or no jurisdiction, our office is responsible for the enforcement. Next slide. So NDE also provides on-site trainings to numerous members of the state construction industry using state energy program funding. This year we will be trying out a Nebraska-specific webinar trainings to this group of people. Training costs are generally out of the state energy program funds, but in the past we used to receive funds from special projects through the Department of Energy. Next slide. Okay. And we also have the Weatherization Assistance Program, and we have two sources of funds through that program, through DOE and through the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program through the Department of Health and Human Services. Nebraska's funding for those two programs together approximately $6 million. Nebraska subawards those funds to 7 community action agencies and 1 nonprofit agency in Douglas County, which is Habitat for Humanity of Omaha. Next slide. So in the Weatherization Program, we also have that same data fact-finding system that the UNL had developed for us, and we have that set up through our weatherization database. So when agencies submit their reimbursements for payment for weatherization work they completed. The data is compiled through that system. And for last year, we had 19.15 job years, which we were able to weatherize 428 low-income homes. So, and approximately 300 of those homes were in rural counties in Nebraska. And the rural county jobs, we are looking at about 15.09. And so that rural counties is just actually excluding Douglas and Lancaster counties, our two major populated cities in Nebraska. And it would take a little more time for me to get it down to lower population, more rural. If we ever wanted to look at that, we do have, the database does come up in counties, so we can pull out, the counties and calculate that. With my short time getting this ready, I only was able to pull out the two major cities. So that's what we're looking at for job years for the majority of Nebraska is rural anyway. So next slide. So with the Weatherization Assistance Program, we are tasked with providing Weatherization Assistance Program training. And with the Weatherization Program, it requires our network to have BPI certified quality control inspectors and energy auditors to inspect 100% of the homes the subgrantees weatherize. And our state office quality control inspectors, we're limited to, we just do a sample inspection of those homes that our subgrantees do, and we do 5 to 10% inspections across the state on those for each agency to check their work. And so with the quality control inspector and the auditors, we outsource that training to IREC accredited QCI and energy audit training facilities. We've gone to Santa Fe Community College. Indiana State has a community action network agency for their state that we've had sent people, and then there's also some training we've been able to get and testing done in Kansas City. Our Nebraska Training Center, we contract with a laborers union of Omaha, Nebraska, and they are IREC accredited for training Weatherization Assistance Program installers and crew chiefs, and we'll be working in the future at getting them accredited for the quality control inspector and energy auditor sometime in the future. At this point, we are doing it this way because you don't have as much turnover in the inspector, quality control, and energy auditor in our network. There is more turnover in installers and crew chiefs, so we feel that by having the training center that offers those trainings in Nebraska, that helps keep their costs down to keep that kind of training in Nebraska, because they don't have to travel so far to get it, and they have a very nice facility set up in Omaha and for those types of trainings. We receive approximately $500,000 for training and technical assistance for the Weatherization Assistance Program. And next slide. The Weatherization Assistance Program provides workforce training that builds job skills and long-term employment opportunities, and provides jobs for suppliers to the program, provides jobs to administrative office staff, and it lowers the energy burden to low-income families across the state of Nebraska. Next slide. We've also had some special projects that we've done in the state of Nebraska. We've had the Nebraska Initiative and Benchmarking and Beyond project, and over the past 2 years, provided workforce development opportunities to all state facility management employees. And in October 2018, had certified energy management training was provided by the Association of Energy Engineers, and outreach was provided to all state facility managers in both urban and rural communities. In the spring of 2019, the Nebraska Initiative Benchmarking and Beyond conducted a building operator certification month-long training by the Midwest Energy Efficiency Association for 9 state facilities managers, and some representing operations in rural Nebraska. And the Nebraska Initiative Benchmarking Beyond has also provided us with interns that we have been able to use and utilize for that program, giving them in the field training and learning all about how we look at the energy efficiencies in buildings. And it's been a good resource for us to have those interns involved in that. And these are going to be our future workforce out there assisting in the energy field. And I believe I have one more slide has my contact information. I guess we'll be answering questions at the end. So I'll be welcome to take any questions later. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tom. And I'll pass things over to Nick. So Nick, I just invited you to share your screen.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Hope you can. Hope you can see my screen. I am excited to be here today and honored, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. And I guess I'll jump right in and talk a bit about the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. We are a nonprofit based in Wisconsin, and we've been around since 1990. We are a member-based organization. We have 3,000 members, more than 3,000 members, and we have a real office in Custer. The picture you see there is our office. We had the first DC fast charger for electric vehicles in the state, as far as I know, and it's still the only one that's not a Tesla charger in the north part of the state. We're not in the office now, so we don't know who's charging there, but the charging is still happening. And we're best known regionally for training, which we'll talk about, but in general, our entire scope has been for the past 7 years on soft cost reduction, solar soft cost reduction, and market penetration for distributed generation, particularly solar photovoltaics. And so we do a lot of work with jurisdictions all over the Midwest. One thing we do are our solarized group buy programs, which we'll talk about. We provide technical assistance to help municipalities, universities, and schools and hospitals go to market for highest value, lowest cost solar projects. We manage a Wisconsin-based effort at this point called Solar on Schools that provides module donations to public schools all throughout the state. We run the nation's largest and longest running public event dedicated to clean energy, which is the Energy Fair, which brings about 13,000 people to our campus in central Wisconsin, but that won't be happening this year. And then in response to the COVID-19 recession, we have a new program called Rise Up Midwest that I'll mention briefly. So, I think for us, this is likely the most descriptive publication to outline strategies for workforce development in the solar industry. It was funded by the U.S. Department of Energy and put together by the Solar Foundation, and really looks at, more comprehensively at the workforce development system, processes for hiring and recruitment, some best practices, resources available, details career pathways in solar, looks at like sector partnerships, which is what we consider ourselves, a multi-sector partnership. We'll talk about that. And then how to plan for workforce development at the local and state level. So I put a link in there for that publication. And one of the major takeaways, which shouldn't be surprising, is that when you look at how companies invest in training for their workers, what you see is that investment reduces labor costs over time. And so we are a strong proponent of workforce development to reduce soft costs and to ensure quality in the industry and to effectively scale the industry. If you're familiar with this kind of soft cost language, it really is that for every solar electric system that's installed, 64% of that system, the costs are non-hardware. And you can see them stacked up there. One of the highest costs is installation labor. Supply chain costs have obviously been increasing because of tariffs, and generally the industry has technologies have advanced very quickly and responded to recent code requirements, and so that always kind of impacts the supply chain. Plus, as the industry has aggressively moved into new markets from the east and west coasts, those supply chain costs can rise, but we really have specifically targeted the customer acquisition and installation costs, and I should also say permitting and interconnection costs as well, which if you add those up, that's over 20% of the installed system cost. So we can talk, I guess, briefly here and maybe more in the questions about solar career pathways. In general, we have been and are committed to the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, NABCEP, job task analysis and their certifications. They're the leading certifier of solar professionals in the country, and we offer a lot of NABCEP training. So our associate pathway training is laid out there on the right-hand side of your screen. And then they have been doing some good work and starting to better define some of the career pathways in the industry. So you can see for a long time, they really focused on their PV installation professional certification. Recently, they developed a PV technical sales certification to start to differentiate between the design and office side and the job site practical installation side. And now what we're seeing is, as the market has grown, that PV system inspector certification, PV commissioning and maintenance, and then some specialists in design and install are important. A lot of this comes from a bit of the bifurcation of the industry, where you have a lot of large scale solar farms, utility scale solar farms has been over the last 3 years the fastest growing sector in solar, as utilities broadly adopt solar as a generation platform. And when you get into there, you're looking at a lot of employment in what we call post-rack and panel. And so that's kind of that PV installer and PV associate training. And we work with a number of technical colleges, and that's a bit different than what we would call the distributed generation market, which is commercial and residential, which is more rooftop and small ground mounted. And by small, I mean 200 kilowatt at sometimes up to a megawatt on some larger commercial sites, or 2 megawatts. And then these tend to have a more integrated installation team, and that's where you get into this PV technical sales and PV installation professional certifications. For us, we train the whole gamut. You'll see that last year we trained over 1,000 students. We offer training in person throughout the Midwest and online. So we had trained 189 people in person last year, 668 folks online. we offer what we call a Solar Training Academy, which is a boot camp for working professionals that's designed to hit people who are, who can be free a weekend, but not during the week. So that's a weekend a month for 3 months. We did 7 of those all over the Midwest and just wrapped up in March. And then we also do contracted trainings, and we have worked a lot with institutions across the Midwest in recent years, particularly, for example, the Minnesota Department of Corrections. And so we've been doing a lot of soon-to-be released prisoner training, and we've been training some vets, and over 100 people last year took the PV associate exam with us, which is is the entry-level examination that NABCEP offers, and we have approximately a 90% pass rate on that exam. And so here are some of the groups recently that we've been working with. This is spurred through some federal funding and state funding, trying to get solar training to communities that have high unemployment rates, which happen to be many of our communities now. But as of last year, we were working a lot in Chicago and Minnesota with a diverse amount of groups, and we're pretty excited and hopeful to continue those partnerships. And then beyond that, we currently have a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Department of Energy in a sector partnership, which we call the Solar Core. It currently is for partnering technical colleges in Wisconsin. We have 8 partnering industry employers. We have some private foundations and a whole network of jurisdictions advancing projects. And with this program, we are supporting the advancement of solar training at 4 technical colleges, and then placing 160-hour internships with their students in internships with employers, and then developing advanced on-site PV training experiences for credit at each of the colleges. Some of those projects have been pretty notable. We installed 2 solar plus storage systems in Toa Baja, Puerto Rico, and are hopeful that we can continue to do that work in partnership with technical colleges and students. And in general, the approach here is to raise the visibility of a solar installer as a desired career profession, and advance high visibility, high impact projects, and get students hands-on experience. Hands-on and worksite experience are what's most desired by the solar industry. To do this, one of the ways that we help stimulate employment, solar energy systems, if you look currently at U.S. generation capacity additions for the last 3 years, solar and wind have been the largest amount of capacity additions in the U.S. generation fleet. They also now represent the cheapest cost electricity in the market. And because of the widespread availability of solar installer, the tax credit, and widespread availability of financing, these systems are very accessible now to a wide swath of consumers. And a lot of the adoption really just depends on what we call affinity and proximity. If your neighbor has it, you're likely to get it. And if someone that goes to your church or someone you work with has it, then you're also likely to get it. So we've advanced what we call solarized programs. We've done over 11 megawatts of projects through these programs and engaged nearly 9,000 people, and has resulted in installations on over 1,000 properties. The solarized, part of the solarized program, what we do is we build a jurisdiction partnership, and then we target a specific area and go out for a competitive procurement of contractor. The contractor gives us their best price, and then we negotiate with them for a discount as the program scales. We provide free consumer education and then no cost site assessments, and then give a deadline to commit. And then we have foundations that have provided matching funds for us to support nonprofit project development. And now we also require that the contractors work with us to place students as internships and host these advanced training projects in partnership with our technical colleges. So we're in the process of launching 13 more of these this year, all, I guess, now virtually until further notice. And another thing that we do with those communities is we support their advancement and achievement of Soul Smart designation, which is a national designation supported by, again, by the U.S. Department of Energy for solar ready communities. So here are all the communities we've worked with so far. We're hopeful that this program can continue and we can continue to work with small and medium-sized communities all over the Midwest to help them align their permitting, planning, zoning, deployment, and public education to meet that Soul Smart designation. And then, as I mentioned, we have a partnership with the Wisconsin Foundation to donate the first 50 kilowatts of solar to schools and to provide free technical assistance to help them go to market. And that program just started last year and is a bit on pause right now as nobody's in the schools in many of the Midwest states, but we're hopeful to launch that back up this summer. And then we've also developed a free online financial modeling tool. It's available for use at solarprojectbuilder.org. It's very popular. It has almost 7,000 users, and they've generated financial profiles for nearly 9,000 projects. And this tool allows you to compare different financing methods, including direct purchase, loan, lease, and power purchase agreement. And this is part of our technical assistance platform for what we call the MUSH market, municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals that help them procure solar and achieve long-term energy bill reduction. One of the things that happened recently, as you're all aware, is a global pandemic, the novel coronavirus, and the COVID-19 disease that creates. And we've been paying attention to this pretty seriously, and realize that that we're going to experience a mid to long-term recession, and that this threatens not only a widespread unemployment, but could be very difficult to recover economically. I think the back of the napkin math goes something like, our 2019 federal budget was about $4.5 trillion. We actually took in $3.5 trillion of tax collection. Now we've just spent $2.2 trillion on our first stimulus bill. We're projecting now that the federal deficit for this fiscal year will be $4.5 trillion. The Fed has a $6 trillion balance sheet, and the chairman of the Fed has projected that he's willing to raise that balance sheet up above $10 trillion to do everything that they can to save Wall Street and hopefully Main Street, which scares us, and which makes us think that right now every dollar you hold has just become less valuable. And it's the responsibility of every state and local government to ensure that every dollar that they have in their budgets is invested to ensure durable and long-term productivity, because this is maybe the last chance we have for some time. And so we're very focused on working throughout the Midwest with state and local units of government to advance strategic investments that reduce market barriers and that open up markets for distributed generation. And we believe that we need a swift and strategic response to stem the recession. We think that the clean energy industry, including energy efficiency and distributed energy generation, have the technologies and applications that are proven, affordable, market ready, and that the industry is ready to participate in widespread growth and job creation. As I'm presenting here from my house and my uncomfortable upstairs on my uncomfortable desk in my too cold of house, we're probably all realizing that the home energy budget is now the business energy budget, and the home performance and comfort of homes is going to become increasingly of import to local jurisdictions and state governments. and that it's a benefit to all ratepayers in Wisconsin. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory last year, as many of you are probably aware, they looked at all the state energy efficiency programs. In Wisconsin, we have a public benefits program called Focus on Energy. Our program is the most cost-effective program in the country, and it returns $5 for every dollar invested to our ratepayers. And so we understand that if we're looking at the wisest choice of investment, that efficiency, particularly home and business energy efficiency, is a critical investment, especially at this time. And I'd like to congratulate NASEO for their recent jobs report. It's been incredibly useful to our effort. What it shows, for example, in Wisconsin, that more than 60,000 people in our state work in efficiency, and we have a widespread industry throughout all rural and urban areas, and the capacity to grow very rapidly. And I think it's also important to recognize that across political lines, the public supports these efforts, and the vast majority of state energy offices are advancing this. And so we're really focused on this effort right now to ensure that we take advantage of this moment and we avoid the potential attrition in this really important market to our future. And right now we're getting stakeholders on board. We'll soon engage the public. We want to not invent new programs, but scale existing successes. We want long-term market stability to ensure that businesses have the ability to invest and grow with some sense of real stability in these strange times. And we think that sweeping change is possible and necessary to ensure that we make appropriate energy investments, and that we invest our funds now to create durable, local, long-term investments that help Main Street. And that's all I have, and I thank you for your time today.
Great, thank you so much, Nick. So I just wanted to give a really quick version of the last presentation that we had lined up today, where the speaker was not able to make the call. But Mike Shaprenko runs some really strong workforce training programs. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the services that his group provides. It's the Municipal Electric Utilities of Wisconsin. Mike is the manager of safety services, and they run training programs for utility workers, for utility managers, and they also help coordinate regionally to provide utility line workers at times of emergencies like storms or outages. They help provide workers to smaller utilities that might need support for additional line workers to restore service and get power back. So they run 4 key training programs. They run a line workers program, their electric utility safety and training program. They also have a leadership academy and a management training program for higher level employees of utilities. They also run a safety management program throughout Wisconsin that focuses on worker safety and maintaining the lines. And they finally is their emergency mutual aid, where they build a network of workers that they've trained and then help dispatch them to smaller utilities that might not have the bandwidth to address all the challenges they're facing at times of storms or outages. So it really kind of gets to the overlap between resiliency efforts and workforce. So that is the brief version of Mike's presentation. So now I want to open it up to questions. A couple have come in through the chat feature, but I wanted to give Sumesh the first chance to ask something if you have a question.
Well, first of all, I want to thank both of our speakers for doing a great job and really covering their programs very comprehensively. And maybe just building up on what Nick just spent the last couple of minutes on talking about the Rise Up Wisconsin program or Rise Up Midwest program. Tom, can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you were having to do differently because of the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. I was planning on doing that and kind of slipped my mind. But yes, with our situation we're in now with most of our community action partners and our one nonprofit agency are pretty much shut down right now. People are working from home, and they're not going to be able to get back into houses, do any weatherization until this settles down and we get it all clear to get back into homes. So one thing we've been trying to do to help support them during this shutdown time is we have moved some of our technical training money over to our sub-grantees so that during this close down period, they can get more training on their area of expertise and hopefully become more efficient at the work that they are doing when they get back into the field. And I know from experience and from talking to some of these, it's going to be boring after a while, but the alternative is, we want to keep those, the excellent workers we have out there that are already certified and have gone through a lot of training to get those certifications. So it's important to keep those people at work, and we feel that some online training, DOE has come up with a big list of online training that the network can do while they're working from home. Other than that, there has been very little work in any homes. And if they are finishing up homes, we're making sure that they're doing a good screening process to keep everybody safe. So that's about it right now for us.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Dylan, I know I'm just looking at the clock, so do you want to take the questions that came in on the through the chat box?
Yeah, sure. Carrie, are you on the line? I saw you asked a few questions. I can unmute you and you can ask them if that works.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep, you're unmuted.
Okay, great. Well, great presentations. Really appreciate the work you all have put into this. I work in the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy in Virginia as a solar program manager. And I had a few different questions. Let's see, regarding the Midwest Solar Job Training, I'm curious if you could talk about a little bit more about your diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is that do you track that in terms of metrics as far as your outcomes to ensure equity and parity for gender and race in that program?
Yeah, hi, this is Nick. Thanks for the question. So to be clear, the MRE is a nonprofit. We don't get any state funding support, and our federal support is very project specific. And so the vast majority of training that we do is paid in-person training. We keep our costs very low, and we have a scholarship program, but we're just responsive to inquiries and training. Now, our initiative, we've definitely fundraised to engage disadvantaged communities, but the two programs that have really helped us meet some of our engagement goals are first, the Minnesota Department of Corrections with funding from the U.S. Department of Labor has really targeted soon to be released prisoners as job training candidates for the solar industry. So we've done 5 different trainings with the correction system there, and that's been really exciting to see. We don't have the most recent up-to-date jobs placement numbers, but as of last year, 90% of those people got jobs after being released from prison. And then in Illinois, they passed some pretty sweeping legislation called the Illinois Future Energy Jobs Act. That was kind of a game of chicken with the state's nuclear industry who wanted to bail out. And so the conservation community kind of negotiated a few programs. And one of them is called Solar for All, and then there are some affiliated programs that have market incentives for projects that go up in disadvantaged communities, and also for companies that employ from those communities. And so we have been training in partnership with community-based organizations through that program and other aspects of the FEJA program to prepare folks for placement. I guess more specifically to answer your question, we try our best to prepare people to pass the NABCEP associate exam. That's kind of our first target for entry-level workers. And we've had to adapt quite a bit our training with these new audiences to ensure higher pass rates. For example, last year, our online training had 100% pass rate. Our solar training academies had 94% pass rate, and a few of our contract trainings with some of the groups I've listed had 60%, 50 to 60% pass rates. And so we have some work to do on preparing some of this audience for work in solar, and we're taking that pretty seriously. But we're open to more partnerships and resources. We're hoping that more states, local workforce development boards, and workforce agencies help fund some of this work because we see a strong potential for long-term job placement, both in soon-to-be released prisoners and in some of these under-resourced communities.
Awesome,
Hey,
thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Nick. There was a couple other questions, but right at the hour, so I think we've got to call it. But if any other issues come up, you're definitely welcome to email me, and I'll try to get you the right answers and connect you with the right people. My email is dtucker@naseo.org. Definitely happy to help and keep this conversation going into the future. So thanks again to our speakers, to Sumesh for moderating, and thanks everybody for calling in. Hope everybody is staying safe and healthy and has a good day. Thanks everybody, bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.